Alright people, so I'm here with the video on Veterans Day. Now, Veterans Day is a day where you're supposed to honor the military people. I believe it's both the dead and alive military people, when Memorial Day is just the dead. But a lot of just propaganda really being thrown out into the brains of into the brainwashed people here in America. All this propaganda of soldiers fight for our freedoms. Total lie. That is the biggest lie I've ever heard. Now, if you know basic history, this is seriously just basic history. You know war is just something that isn't fought for our freedoms. It's fought upon, most wars are fought upon lies, deception, propaganda. And most wars aren't fought for our freedoms, they're fought for corporate interest and to take our freedoms. It's actually the opposite, actually. All these soldiers, and I'm not demonizing the soldiers and necessarily calling them bad, but it's actually the opposite. Um, they say, oh, they're fighting to keep our freedoms. Alright, well, let's look at 9/11, alright? Oh, let's thank these soldiers for fighting to keep our freedoms since 9/11. Well, ever since 9/11, actually, our freedoms have been taken away. A lot of them, actually. There's TSA in the airports, groping people, sexually assaulting them. The Bill of Rights is basically being taken away. I mean, just look at, what's going on in Ferguson right now. People aren't even allowed to have free speech. Camera crews, equipment is being taken down. And also there's, the Wall Street protesters, Occupy protesters. I mean, they were chased off with tear gas. I mean, there's numerous occurrences of the First Amendment being infringed on. Swearing is just an example. It's like they have ordinances, I believe, where you can't swear in public in certain cities or whatever. Like, there's a lot of instances where, and also they could just call you a terrorist, and basically, the Patriot Act, call you a terrorist, and basically you don't get a trial, which goes against our Constitution pretty much. I mean, the Patriot Act is like, they call you a terrorist and then you get no fucking rights. If they suspect you of being a terrorist, then you get no rights. There was an article in the New York Times where it talked about the IRS just seizing people's accounts based on suspicion alone, and only like 1 in 5 of the accounts turned out to be like criminal accounts or something like that. So ever since 9/11, we have gotten our freedoms taken away at a mass level. They're trying to go after the First Amendment, they're trying to go after the Second Amendment, they're trying to go after the Fourth Amendment. I mean, just the three most important amendments in my opinion. They're trying to, at least in the Bill of Rights, I think, probably the right to trial too, which is kind of the fifth is, I believe that's the right to plead guilty, or the right to not talk or whatever. Double jeopardy too is in there, and the sixth is the right to a fair and speedy trial. 7 has to do with like private court cases or something like that. And also the Eighth Amendment, torture. I believe that's a violation of the Eighth Amendment, torture. Because the Eighth Amendment says no cruel or unusual punishments. Well, if torture is not cruel and unusual, then what the hell is? So ever since 9/11, our freedoms have been taken away. So let's just get past this lie of soldiers fight for our freedoms. And if you were to say that in public, soldiers don't fight for our freedoms, you would probably be attacked. Maybe not physically, but you would probably be seriously attacked, because people are just so brainwashed. I mean, it just doesn't go through their heads. And by golly, if you say soldiers don't fight for our freedoms, that's so unpatriotic. I think it's the opposite. I think it's being patriotic to know what's actually going on. Look at all the wars, whether it be the war with Spain back in 1898, where we lied about the blowing up of the Maine, or the blowing up of the Lusitania to get us into World War One, where it was where there was actually ammunition on board, or whether it be Pearl Harbor, where mainstream news was reporting that FDR had prior knowledge, and the memos were actually saying that Japan was interested in Pearl Harbor a few days before the attack, and also the McClellan memo in 1940 said the U.S. wanted to persuade Japan to commit an overt act of war on the U.S. Look it up, people. I know this. I got it memorized because why? I don't have song lyrics memorized really, but I got this memorized because it's interesting. Vietnam. I read the LBJ tapes where basically says it's a fake thing. It never happened. Also, McNamara came out in '04 said it never happened. The NSA, tapes say it never happened, and intelligence lied about it. Um, Iraq, we all know that was a lie over WMDs and 9/11. I've covered that immensely on my channel. False flag operation as well. People just gotta wake up and realize we go to war for the military-industrial complex and select corporations like Dick Cheney's Halliburton. And Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us of the military-industrial complex back in the 50s in his farewell address. He said, yeah, watch out for the military-industrial complex. And yeah, that was a good warning, fucking like 50, 60 years later, yeah, it's really taken over our country. We are a war country. We're always at war. When one war ends, it seems like we gotta go to do another war. Iraq and Afghanistan end. Now we gotta go back to Iraq to fight the U.S.-funded ISIS, which is in mainstream news, publicly funded. I mean, I've showed the articles numerous times on my channel where it says in mainstream news, whether it be ABC News, Bloomberg, it says basically U.S. funds Taliban, U.S. funds Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda is basically ISIS, so a branch of ISIS. So let's just get through. Let's break through this conditioning, and stop. The real thing that we should be paying attention to is how the veterans are just given. They're not given treatment at the VA centers, and they are discriminated against. And I think they actually know what the fuck's going on. Like a lot of these veterans, I think, are just they join the military. They think they're doing good. They think and they are courageous people. They are courageous people who think they're fighting for our freedoms, but in reality, they're just fighting for corporations and to take away our freedoms, actually. Because war is used to take away our freedoms in a lot of times, or at least the actions leading up to war are used to take away our freedoms. And just look at what they did to the Japanese in World War II. They put them in concentration camps. Yeah, we don't really pay too much close attention to that, do we? The bad things we did, like discriminate against the Indians and move them off of their land. We don't pay attention too much to those things. We're too busy glorifying ourselves over all these fucking wars and glorifying the military. Well, the military, I support the troops. They're courageous. They think they're courageous. They think they're fighting for a good cause. They are courageous people. But I think once they get inside the system and realize that it's a big giant fraud, I think a lot of them wake up to the fact that we fund ISIS. We are a criminal country who just is fighting all these wars for corporate interests. And I really think the military, once they get out, I think they know, a lot of them know what's going on, and that's why the government doesn't really like the veterans and doesn't really give care to the veterans, medical care, after they get out of the wars. I just saw this guy in the Alex Jones show, and he's like, yeah, I believe he was former Navy or something like that. He's like, yeah, I got all these injuries and I can't pay for them. And of course the government won't help him out. I mean, he's risked his life for the country, and the government won't even help him out. So it just really depresses me when we've got injured veterans, and we'll just say, oh, let's just give them some pills, and then they'll go commit suicide. And yeah, if you look it up, it's in mainstream news. It's in the Forbes article, I believe it was Forbes, where it says 21 people, military people, commit suicide each day. Former and active commit suicide each day, which is like an all-time high, I heard. So that's what we should really be paying attention to. 21 a day. That's, and why? Because we just give them pills instead of giving them proper treatment. Let's treat our veterans right. This is what we should be talking about. The veterans being treated through things, I think. 2 or 3 things, I don't know. We should be talking about how these wars are just giant frauds, and they're just used to take away our freedoms and to feed money to the military-industrial complex. And we should be talking about the veterans and how they're mistreated by the U.S. government. So, but instead it's all, oh, the veterans are fighting for our freedoms. That is complete bullshit. Look what happened with Vietnam. We lost the war. Complete loss. I think all these wars I consider, even if they're so-called wins, I consider them losses. Because how can you call a victory where you lost fucking 58,000 people in Vietnam? How can you even if you lose only a few thousand? I say only, only compared to Vietnam, but it's still a lot of people. How can you consider that a victory? I mean, I guess you can consider it a victory if they're like trying to invade us and we're barely holding them off and we end up beating them. But it's in the halfway across the world in the fucking Middle East. It doesn't affect us, so I don't really consider it a victory. I mean, yeah, if there was a big military invading us, inside America, and we pushed them back and we defeated them, then maybe we could celebrate and have a victory, celebration. But this is not the same. This is fighting a U.S. funded. We fight the same people we fund. It's in mainstream news. We do, and it's just again Vietnam. We lost the war. We pulled out. It was a fucking like 10-year war, an unwinnable war. That's what they were calling it. And nothing happened to us. They didn't invade us. Nothing happened to us. We were fine. So that obviously means it was a fucked up war. If you look at what happened in Iraq, if you believe everything the government says or whatever, that's a loss too, because Iraq, it's still going on. It's just starting up again. So we obviously did not do our jobs in winning the war. So I mean, just look at all these wars. They're not, Korean War, fucking pretty much ended in an armistice. Stalemate throughout the entire thing. Lost a bunch of people in that one too. Just a useless war fighting for another fucking country. Yeah, we lose thousands of people fighting for another country, which doesn't affect us at all. And what do we end up? We end up same place we started, pretty much, a stalemate, and they ended 58th parallel, 38th, something like that. But point is, all these wars are just useless wars. That are just, we're fighting against people that we fund, like against the Taliban and Al Qaeda and ISIS, who we fund and our allies fund as well. And they're used to take our freedoms as well. And again, the veterans are being mistreated by the government. They should be given proper health care and they should be given proper care. But instead, we just say, fuck you, veterans, and we let them commit suicide. So that's what we should be paying attention to on this day. I support the troops, and I think they're waking up to the fact that the government is a fraudulent system and a criminal organization. I hope they do wake up. So there you go, people. And if you have any comments, I'm always encouraging comments. What do you think? Do you think is there anybody who thinks that the government, that the military actually fights for our freedoms? Let me know below. Do you agree with me? Always let me know. Like, dislike, whatever you want. So there you go, people.